first demonstration is a bulk tank delivery. We're transferring liquid into a 6,000 gallon siphon tank at 105 psi and about 35% liquid level. Bill's opening the cabinet doors. The arrival conditions of the tank, the typical arrival conditions of the tank and the pulse tank will be under 25 psi. Bill's deactivating the road relief system. On top of the cabinet we have a clock. The clock is for running time for this demonstration. He's going to start by adjusting the pressure to 50 psi above the bulk tank and pressing the start button. This will start the pressure building. The dash P dash in the status indicates that we are pressure building, and the top number is the pressure in the tank. Is at about 35 psi and rising. Bill's attaching the hose. While it's pressure building, the operator's got time to connect the hose and purge the hose. He's hammered on the CGA fitting. The high flow circuit, which we're using here to fill the bulk tank, is a large transfer hose with CGA fittings on both ends. Bill's going to open the bottom withdrawal line or bottom fill valve on the siphon tank to purge the fill line, to remove any air and or moisture in the hose, also chilling the hose. The current pressure in the storage is at 74 psi and rising. This remote display has levels and pressures and fill information. And we're gonna approaching 90 psi. And again, he's set at 50 psi above the bulk tank. At 155, we'll get a go indication. Bill's purging the hose. Slowly crack open the dispense valve, the hand-operated dispense valve. There's also an air-operated one that's controlled by the control system. The pressure rise during this phase is a function of the storage liquid level. We're starting with at about 90% in the storage tank, so the pressure rise is fairly rapid, a psi or so a second. We're approaching the set point. At that point, we'll get a go in the status on the status line on the flow comm, and also on the remote display. At the pressure set point, the PB closes. Bill's activated the delivery by pressing the start button. We've got flow. He's opened the dispense hand valve all the way. Anytime you get a little bit of liquid across the CGA fitting, you'll get a bit of leak, so he's hammered that tight. Got a little bit of leaking at the bulk tank on the CGA, so he's going to hammer that closed. He's opening the top and bottom fill valves now on the bulk tank, and that's why the flow rate's rising. That's on the lower part of the display there. And the 42 gallons is the gallons delivered. We're currently flowing at about 70 gallons a minute. We've got the valves completely open, and as things cool down, the flow rate will actually increase. Flow rate is now at 81 gallons a minute and rising. We've delivered over 80 gallons. Flow rate's leveling off at around 91, 92 gallons a minute. We're currently at 125 gallons delivered. We're going to go ahead and stop filming for a period of time. At the 5-minute mark here, we're 5 minutes into the delivery. At the 16-minute mark, we're going to come back into the demonstration. And our remote display is indicating just short of 1,000 gallons delivered and 70 gallons a minute. It also indicates pressures both in the pulse tank and in the storage tank, and of course the current status. There we're at 1,000 gallons at 70 gallons a minute. Bill's going to terminate the delivery by hitting the stop button. He could also terminate the delivery by simply closing the bulk tank top and bottom fill valves. Stop the delivery. It's possible to deliver all 2,500 gallons from this tank into the bulk tank without stopping. And again, this is all done with their patented pulse technology transfer that has no pump. Bill's closing the top and bottom fill valves. He's going to go ahead and initiate the blowdown, both the pulse tank and the main storage. Again, we got to blow it down below 25 psi before we close the doors and move on to the next delivery. He's opened the line drain. He's opening the main vent valve. We always blow the gas from the pulse tank through the main storage so we can capture as much gas as possible in the liquid and in the main storage. Okay, we're going to pause again on the 18-minute mark and come back in at the 24.5-minute mark. We've sufficiently blown the system down. Currently at 23, 22 psi in the storage. Bill's clearing the total on the flow com. We had a printer. We could print a ticket at that point. He's closing the main vent valve. He's going to reactivate the road relief circuit. And with the transfer hose removed and stowed, he can close the cabinet doors. And that process took about 25.5 minutes to complete. The next demonstration is a small Permasil delivery. Got a 230-liter Permasil. This transfer comes directly out of the pulse tank instead of out of the main storage. And what we call a low flow delivery comes out of the smaller hose. Bill's going to connect the spin adapter to the Permasil. And again, the arrival conditions are around 25 psi. And the pulse tank is full of liquid. Permasil's at 5% and about 65, 70 psi. Bill's going to close the road relief valve for the main storage and switch to low flow. He's going to check the pressure on the Permasil and add 100 psi to that, and that's his pressure set point for the pulse tank. He's setting it around 170. Pressing the start button initiates the pressure build. When it reaches the PB set point, it's going to give them a go indication. Bill presses the start button, the flow starts. Depending on the pressures, you can see 20 to 30, an average of 20 to 30 gallons a minute in this transfer. Permasil is equipped with a float device that when the level reaches the safe fill level, the float will pop up, restricting the flow. The control system senses that change in flow rate and terminates the delivery. Pulse tank's at about 79%. We're flowing at about 25 gallons a minute. Level on the Permasil is 80% and rising. Pressure's now dropped back down to about that 70 psi mark. The float activation in the Permasil when it achieves the safe fill level has an audible clunk. At that point, the control system will sense the change in flow rate and terminate the delivery. I think that's occurred here. And we'll look at the remote display here. Yes, it's showing 0 gallons a minute. We've transferred 41 gallons. Bill's going to initiate the blowdown of the pulse tank. It has to be below 25 psi before he closes the cabinet doors. Moves to the next site. We transfer the gas from the pulse tank into the main storage and then out the main storage vent valve. It's clearing the total. Pressure's dropped to a safe level. It's closing the vents. Reactivating the road relief system. He's going to remove the hose and stow the hose. The XT2500 does not have a hose tube for the permanently attached hose. It's simply stored in the piping cabinet. Turns off the flow comm. Closes the cabinet doors. The operator's ready to move to the next delivery. Here we're going to show the system in a walk around. This is the control panel. Flowcom S8, remote display, a few hand valves that operate ball valves, and a couple buttons. Bill's going to do a pressure build for us so that we can see the coils in action. This is the first part of the pressure building system for the main storage tank. Coil is all aluminum and designed with a little bit of shape to it to create some structural strength. It's a 2,500 gallon storage tank, designed obviously to be mounted on a truck, and here we're setting on carts. You can see the airflow across the fins from top to bottom. There's two parts to this coil, one on each side of the tank. This fin is actually the pumping system. Creates the horsepower that drives the liquid out of the storage tank. It's essentially what replaces the pump motor. Here you can see the sump below the frame of the tank, and behind it is the pressure building system for the pulse tank. The remote display can display all kinds of information from the flow comm, including the total flow, flow rate, pressures, levels in the tanks. A couple buttons and adjustment, PB adjustment knob, and a low flow switch. Pneumatic operators for the ball valves. On this side we have top and bottom fill circuit, high flow dispense circuit, and the PB return line. On the right side here we've got the low flow circuit, the vent circuits, and the safety circuits. Control. The gauge panel's got the pressure for the pulse tank and the storage, and the level for the storage.